Britain's news channel.
Hello and welcome to Headliners, your paper preview show with three comedians going through the next day's papers. I'm one of them, I'm Leo Kearse, and I'm joined by the dream team of the South Coast's Paul Cox and the South Bronx's Lewis Schaefer.
Oh, Brooklyn.
It's all the same to me. I'm a Brit. How are you both doing?
Well, it makes me remind me, because I say that I'm from Brooklyn, and I did live in Brooklyn for a number of years, but I'm really from some posh suburb.
This isn't your Wikipedia page.
I'm all right, Leo.
Yeah.
Right, thanks, Paul. Anyway,
Well, why do you ask if you're not really interested?
Let's have a look at the front pages. It's TV, Lewis. Let's have a look at the front pages of tomorrow's papers. The Daily Mail leads with striking doctors are just harming patients. The Guardian has PM will go down in history for failing on climate. That's according to Greenpeace. The Financial Times leads with New York's Tapestry tackles Europe's luxury giant with $8.5 billion Capri deal. No idea what that's about. The Eye has mortgage rates war begins as 13 lenders cut prices. The Express has fears of surge in small boats. The Mirror leads with guess who had Shell shares, and those were your front pages. And let's a quick closer look at those front pages, starting with The Guardian, Paul.
The Guardian, our old favourite. PM will go down in history for failing on climate change, says Greenpeace. I don't think he will, actually. I don't think he will at all. Because, he's one of a line of very many prime ministers and leaders that have been involved in this whole process. I think what might go down in history as a problem for this is the hysteria that's being created by people like Greenpeace and Just Stop Oil, who are essentially turning off well-meaning people who aren't denying climate change. However, as a result, they're turning off these people and they're no longer interested in what people have got to say, because all they're really hearing is the neurotic crackpots, for the want of a better word, just shouting at us that the world's going to end at any moment. Yeah,
the world seems to be have been about to end for about... as long as I can remember, the world's been about to imminently end. I mean, environmental groups, they seem to resemble the guy who used to stand in Woolwich High Street with the sandwich board saying, the end of the world is nigh. And that guy wasn't setting government policy. But for some reason, the new end of the world is nigh. The new doomsday cultists are.
That's why the PM will go down in history for failing on climate. The fact is that nobody's going to remember the climate change thing. They're not going to remember it because it's going to be so embarrassing. It's so much COVID. Nobody remembers COVID. It came out 2 years ago, and everybody knows it was like a total nothingness that happened. I might get complaints. You now have to say that's ridiculous. I want to apologize for not thinking that the COVID thing was as big as people think it was.
Well, I don't think that's a controversial thing to say. And yeah, we'll see. Yeah. I mean, climate change. I believe climate change is happening. I don't think the answer is full-scale communism. Moving on, next up, we've got the front cover of the Metro. What have they got, Lewis?
Well, this is a tragedy. High Street hammered, 400 stores and 1,200 jobs in jeopardy as Wilko goes into administration. And Wilko used to be Wilkinson's.
Did it?
Yeah, I think it was called Wilkinson's. That was the name of the shop.
Yeah, they shortened it. Alien style.
Yeah, or America. Yeah, or American style, because we had something like that too, which is we have tons of things. Anyway, and they're going to go out of business. And if they go out of business, it will mean that people will stop buying stuff. Wait a second, that was a joke. That was a joke. People aren't going to stop buying stuff. I mean, obviously, people like Wilko's.
I mean, particularly right now when there's a cost of living crisis. Yeah. Wilko was famous for having, you got brands, you got, other stuff at, rock bottom prices.
And there were no other shops? Is that what you're asking?
No, I mean, there are other shops.
There are other shops. So if this goes out of business, other people, they will buy stuff other places.
Do you think it'll be good news for other shops? Also, I'm surprised, Paul.
Yes, it will be good news for other shops.
I'm surprised, Paul, I said.
Okay,
that they say the high street will be hammered, when I've never seen a Wilko in the high street. It seems to be a sort of retail park.
Yeah, they see it in these satellites more often now, don't they, these satellite retail parks. I mean, it's interesting what you say there, Lewis, because actually Wilkinson's took on the mantle from Woolworths, or Woolies, as it was more colloquially known. And it always amazes me that the shops that sell absolutely everything always tend to go out of business. I don't know if it's they spread themselves too thin or what it is, but it's remarkable. There's always going to be a place on our high street for shops that sell everything you could possibly need.
But you just said they go out of business.
But they aren't learning, are they? I think what happens is we just go out from Amazon now.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you can just order anything off
But there wasn't Amazon.
You don't even need to go to Wilko and rub shoulders with other people. Anyway, next up, we've got the front cover of the Eye, Paul.
Yeah, mortgage rates war begins as 13 lenders cut prices. This is remarkable, actually, because it only feels like 2 weeks ago that I was talking about stories where interest rates were going to be 10% within 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, the economy has gotten to a point where lenders, and by the way, lenders don't run amok with their own money, so they're not going to lend money just willy-nilly for any old rate. So the fact that they're saying now that the rates can drop as low as 5.4% all of a sudden shows you that either something's happening within the economy that wasn't predicted 2 weeks ago, or that what happened 2 weeks ago, or what was spoken about 2 weeks ago, was a load of bluff. Because I can't understand how we can go from absolute panic in the economy just a couple of weeks ago where everything's out of control, we've got no control on inflation, therefore interest rates have got to go up, to all of a sudden we can fix rates a little bit lower. It's like we've come out of recession every other week.
Yeah, and it does seem that, I mean, this seems to be putting the cart before the horse a little bit. I mean, the interest rates haven't come down yet. In fact, they're still going up.
Well, according to what I gather, and I could be totally wrong, what do you call a broke Jew? Louis Schaefer. I don't know much about money myself, and I know I look amazing, and I know you ladies out there want a piece of Louis Schaefer, but there's not much in the pieces. Anyway, I think what happened is that they raised it way. They anticipated the rates being high, so they raised the mortgage rates higher than they needed to raise them. They just got a bit carried away.
I don't think they did, because interest rates are still outpacing interest rates by a significant margin.
Yeah.
Particularly on household goods and things like that, the stuff that Wilko sold.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I use a lot of words to basically say there's something amiss here. There really is something amiss, because not all these things add up.
Yeah, and also, if you get a 5-year fixed deal at 5.4%, we've seen how interest rates can fluctuate over quite short periods of time.
Yeah.
I think if interest rates, if they tackle inflation and get it down to, its target rate of 2% or whatever that is, you're going to be stuck with this 5.4% when everybody else is back on the 0.25%.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that just a few weeks ago, people were probably fixing at 6 or 7%.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you can get a 5% fixed rate.
Could it be that these guys, these bankers or girls and guys, they all acted as one? They're all, they basically maybe don't have
a conspiracy.
They're like a shoal of fish.
Yeah, or a shoal of fish, exactly. Where they just go boom, they go boom. They don't even know why they're going boom. There's no leader. They just go boom. They don't want to be caught. If one person lowers it, that means that. And they're not lowering it by that much. I'm saving £45 or something a month. It's not really.
Anyway, moving on, we've got the Mirror next, Lewis. What's the front cover there?
Well, this is quite interesting. Guess who had Shell shares when she was Secretary of State for the Environment? And
she has Shell shares on the seashore.
The seashore. Theresa Villiers, am I pronouncing it correctly, had 70,000 in Shell shares while environmental secretary. And she was the Secretary for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs from July 2019.
So would she have had some influence over policy that could have helped or hindered Shell?
Yes, she did. And she was actually, the European Union came to her and discussed things. And I mean, what do you expect? It's the Tories. If they don't have stock and stuff.
Yeah, but on the other hand, Paul, the threshold for owning shares and having to declare them is £50,000. So she went over it by accident because she invests in a fund. It's managed by somebody else, so she doesn't know what he's buying, what he's selling, and the amount. I guess Shell had a good year or whatever, so it rose over the £50,000 threshold. It doesn't seem like the crime of the century.
No, it doesn't really. I know it's easy to have a pop at the Tories because they're going to have these things, but at the end of the day, I think moderately intelligent people have shares in companies like Shell because companies like Shell do very... You got shares?
You just call me moderately intelligent.
Sorry. No, what I'm saying is...
The second bad review I've had today.
But what I would say, though, is... It's kind of not entirely related to this story, but she apologised, right? She apologised, and it drives me mad. We should have... What we need to have is, like, a national apology day, and everybody just apologises for their sins on that day, and for the rest of the year we could just move on. Because I don't think there's much to apologise for.
Instead of a Pride Month, we have a shame.
Well, we can have an apology month if you like, but it's just perpetual apology.
That's the Jewish Yom Kippur. The Jews have a holiday for that. They have one day a year where they said, you know, what I've done wrong. But the fact is she's not a normal, moderately intelligent person. She's supposed to know that every single year she's got to fill out a thing, and she goes to a lawyer.
Yeah, but imagine the amount of paperwork. I don't know. I can imagine. It's difficult. Anyway, that's it for part one. Coming up in part two, we've got a rampaging mob in Oxford Street, people smugglers getting a helping hand from our emergency services, and the government spying on our phones. See you in a couple of minutes.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, no, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Leo Kieras, and I'm still here with Paul Cox and Lewis Schaefer. And let's continue with the stories. Kicking things off with The Express, and a mob of teenagers robbed JD Sports on Oxford Street. I believe the bookshop next door was left untouched, Paul.
That would be my guess too. Home Secretary Suella Braverman has ordered a full review of chaotic incidences in London's Oxford Street as she blasted the American-style lawlessness. And if anyone knows anything about American-style lawlessness, it's me having to work with Lewis Schaefer.
Oh,
What? For those who don't know, essentially, you must have been on Mars if you don't know, but there were sort of gangs of yous that had been organised using social media platforms such as Snapchat and TikTok.
We've got footage of it here, so you can see them all mobbing. So they all coordinated a sort of mob attack on JD Sports.
This is really interesting because I actually read stories yesterday denying that this was happening.
Oh, really?
So the fact that
it looks like it's happening.
Well, I don't know, Leo. I mean, it could have all been AI generated. But however, one thing I would say is the Express has taken the angle that this is TikTok's fault, essentially. I think that throws the baby out with the bathwater. So what? I mean, back in the 80s, people were able to organise illegal raves without too much trouble.
This is like blaming the IRA, the phone for the IRA's phone call to the pub saying there's going to be a bomb in it. I mean, that's ridiculous, Lewis.
Yeah, exactly. What's the next step? To blame smoke signals or something? I mean, it's bad. It's bad kids. We're older, so we hate kids. Kids are horrible. But the thing is, they did a mob on JD Sports, but there's Microsoft is right there with really expensive stuff, and there's Apple also down the block, and that's the best that they could do. The fact is, her name is Braverman.
Right, we had this conversation before, Lewis.
Oh, did you check it out?
And I said Braverman. You said Braverman. So
we don't have time for your tomatoes nonsense.
Let's call the whole thing off.
But yeah, I mean, the JD Sports is pretty expensive. I mean,
is it?
Yeah, it's a step above your Sports Direct. I think it's way too expensive.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I can understand these kids. They're obviously sold, they're pumped. The adverts are aimed at them, and then they can't afford the stuff. Not that I'm excusing them.
Well, I think that there's an important part of this story that doesn't get mentioned enough, and it's that these kids know that they can get away with it.
Yeah.
Right? If you thought, as a 14-year-old, 15-year-old, you can go and take a £130 pair of trainers and nobody's really going to do too much about it, you might be tempted to do so.
And we've seen this increasing with TikTok stars like Mizzy, who basically breaks the law, intimidates people, breaks into houses, and seems to get away with it pretty much scot-free. He gets picked up by the police and then he's out doing it the next day. It's ridiculous. Anyway, moving on, we've got The Guardian now, and cross-channel migrants aren't just being brought into the UK by criminal gangs. They're also being brought in by our lifeboat services, Lewis.
Yes, because the ones that are out in the sea. This is an interesting non-story. Or I said it was interesting.
This is not a non-story, Lewis.
This, you know what it is? It's RN Royal National Lifeboat Institution. Okay. Rescue 17 people floating in the channel, and then they say they're going to be 100,000 people coming in via boats this year alone.
Since 2018, I think.
Whatever. No, may have reached you. Okay, well, whatever it is. The fact is, we know people are coming. We know there's nothing we're doing about it. This is not only not news, it's not non-news.
This is absolute news.
No, it isn't news.
This is news, Lewis.
Can I make a case? No, you can't.
Listen.
I want to explain why it's not news, and then you can talk over me.
No, but how about I just talk over you now? This is news because not only are the boats coming, and every effort that's made to stop them is countered, is stymied by NGOs, by Labour, by Lords, by European courts, by lawyers.
So what makes this news?
And then, but these people are still coming, and they're putting themselves in incredible danger.
Stop.
Now, they've got the chance of having a
Okay, I want you to tweet Lewis. I want you to tweet at Lewis Schaefer if you want to hear Lewis Schaefer's point of view.
Why don't you make your point now? Don't say it's a non-story.
It is because we knew what you said last week. We knew it 2 months ago, and we did it. We knew it last year. We knew it. They haven't done anything for years. Yep. So obviously, it is not news if it's the same thing that happens week on and week out. That's what news. It has to be new. This is olds.
There's a certain logic there, Paul.
Fascinating. I felt like a viewer. The thing is, the number itself is staggering, 100,000.
Yeah.
And do you know what? I will say this, because the RNLI get thrown into this story the whole time. I have personally, and I'm not sure why anyone really should, have any issue with the RNLI here. They've got one job to do. They go out and do it. They bring people back, and at the end of the day, they save lives. There'd be a lot more dead people in the sea if it wasn't for them. However, we have to look at where the problem starts here, and we're just not nipping it in the bud. I mean, we saw the stuff with Lee Anderson and Diane Abbott this week, and there were jokes made. I made them myself. But the only people I have seen trying to stop anything are the Conservative Party.
Yeah.
Whether I like it or anyone else likes it.
Some of the Conservative. Some of the Conservative.
Well, I've got
Party.
to say, there's no incentive for Labour to stop the boats because they think that those people are going to vote Labour when they get.
And I think Labour is making a mistake based on the United States circumstance, where people who come to America actually are far more conservative than people who they think, oh, they're going to vote Democrat. No, they want to come to America for a new life. They come to Britain to make money, and they're going to want to side with the Conservatives.
So Labour's migration, open borders policy
might be
come back and bite them.
It might, but the fact is, something needs to be done. And we're GB News, so we have to propose the horrible truth. I'm not going to do it because I'm a comedian. I want you to like me, but something horrible needs to happen.
Moving on, we've got the Mail now showcasing the benefits of immigration. I think Britain would fall apart without the Javid family, Paul.
Well, yeah. The policeman brother of Tory ex-cabinet minister Sajid Javid is being handed a top immigration role at the Home Office. Now, I don't like the way that's framed. I do feel sorry, or I at least feel sympathy for siblings of well-known people, particularly someone like this who's achieved things on their own merit, and then compared. I mean, people often stop my sister in the street. It doesn't have anything to do with me. However, you know, they, at the end of the day, Baz Javid, you know, it sounds like he's done a sterling job. Congratulations to him. There's 3 lines on how well he's done and a whole 16 paragraphs on how he's related to Sajid Javid.
Yeah, but I mean, the whole family, all the brothers went into politics, business, property, and the police, and rose to the top. It's amazing, Lewis.
Yeah, well, actually, you feel sorry for this one. This guy, one of them, of the brothers, is a top property investor. Another one's a supermarket chain boss. Another's a financial advisor.
I think the supermarket chain boss actually, sadly, killed himself.
Oh, killed himself, but he was something.
Oh, yeah.
The fact is that this guy, Baz Javid, was the deputy assistant commissioner for the Metropolitan Police. Based on this family, he's a proper loser. He's Schafarian in his loserness. And you know what, you got to help your brother out.
OK, we've got The Guardian now, and the government have plans to spy on our phone messages to prevent child abuse. But is there a risk of mission creep, Lewis?
Of course there is, because I call myself a we. I've been living here. I got 2 kids. I got 2 English kids. I don't know what the other ones are, but 2 English kids. So I am British kids. I am living in this country. And the UK Minister defends plans to demand access to encrypted messages. And she's a technology secretary. Well, whatever. She's Michelle Donnellan, and she's a technology secretary. And she defended measures to make it so that we could basically block the end-to-end transcription of WhatsApp messages, which are very big in this country. They're not even that big in America compared to here. And because they want to be able to look at all of our messages based on to get some pedos. The fact is, there will be mission creep. They'll go after pedos. They'll go after terrorists. They'll go after climate change deniers.
Yeah, but I remember I was working in intelligence when the Regulation of Investigatory Powers Act, REPA, came through.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be used to catch, terrorists and paedophiles and all the rest of it. And within about, 3 months, we were using it to catch fly tippers.
Yeah.
So, this stuff, as soon as they can look in your messages, they'll be like, oh, wait, he's selling a washing machine. He's, they'll be looking for other stuff as well.
Yeah, I mean, I am a little bit conflicted about this because obviously, on one hand, I think we should have our rights to privacy conserved. Absolutely. And I also believe that probably children shouldn't be on these messaging apps, children of a vulnerable age, that is. However, the flip side of that is I have a teenage daughter who is on these apps. Yeah. And if something was to happen to her, and there is a story at the back of this, essentially, where there was a girl who sadly committed suicide, a teenager, and had they had access to her WhatsApp messages, perhaps they may have been able to stop it. So this is why I'm conflicted.
They wouldn't have been able to stop it.
You're absolutely right. However, there is a motive action here, isn't there? So they can use... The thing I get conflicted about is they can use that situation to open the door for this.
They will.
But one of the things that they could do, which I think they use in other applications already, is they have software that identifies, so it's not a human monitoring it, but it identifies, uses algorithms or whatever to recognise suspicious content, so, child pornography or whatever, and then flags it. And
you trust that software.
Yeah, but I mean,
you
why
trust
not? That's not somebody, that's not, a Chinese internet monitor going through all your personal messages.
I trust that more.
algorithm that gets tweaked.
And you know what it is? Then they'll say we're going to have individuals look at it. Why don't they give the police the ability to open up the post? Who's checking on the post? The post is delivering stuff, the mail, whatever you call it in this country.
It still gets letters. Anyway, that's it for part 2. Coming up after the weather, we've got an autistic girl arrested for saying a policewoman looks like her nana, arguments banned at a university, and sexy cornflakes. See you in a couple of minutes.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest broadcast for GB News. I'm Greg Dewhurst. We're going to see increasing risk of showers as we move towards the weekend, but there will be some sunny spells, just turning a little cooler too. If we look at the bigger picture, this area of low pressure moves in another area of low pressure for the weekend, bringing the risk of showers, though not as windy as recent weekends. For this evening, it's been fine end of the day for many, but we do have this area of rain pushing north and eastwards. It could be heavier for a time across Northern Ireland as it crosses into Scotland too. Elsewhere, generally quite a cloudy, warm, muggy night to come. A lot of cloud around, some drizzle over the hills. Temperatures remaining in double figures, 17, 18 degrees as a low for some of us. Bit of a cloudy start to Friday, still some rain across Scotland, heavy at times, pushing away northeastwards, and then slowly through the morning it starts to brighten up. We could see this area of cloud push into southeast England though to give some showery rain for the afternoon. Elsewhere, bright afternoon, sunny spells and scattered showers, turning breezy around western coast, making it feel a little cooler here. Still highs reaching 27 degrees towards East Anglia. And then Saturday, this low approaches us, gives spells of rain across the north and the west of the UK as the winds pick up. Best of the drier, brighter weather holding on towards the southeast. But even here we'll see some showers moving in later on in the day and quite blustery. Temperatures a little cooler too, and that continues into Sunday and Monday with further showers and temperatures a little below average.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons? I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often there will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. The Express now, and an autistic girl has been arrested after saying a policewoman looked like her lesbian nana. So accurate descriptions are illegal now, Lewis.
Well, this is a horrible story. Autistic teen dragged away by cops after saying officer, quote, looked like lesbian nana, which nana means grandmother, right?
Yeah.
And so the mom posted the video.
And there's a picture of the police officer there.
Yeah.
So
and she looks, I tell you something.
Wrong conclusions this time.
Well, you know what it is? Is there something wrong with being a lesbian?
No.
No? Okay. So is there something wrong with being called a lesbian?
Well, I mean, this is the thing. It wasn't used as a pejorative. It wasn't used, you know, it wasn't...
We don't know, but even if it was used...
It was, you look like this specific person.
Yeah, but even if it was used as a pejorative, if there's nothing wrong with it, it can't be pejorative. It can be used that way.
Yeah, but some people could, you know, you can use homophobic slurs, obviously.
But what about a slur like I say to you, oh, Leo, you're an Einstein, you're a genius.
Yeah, but that's not a slur. That's not bad.
It is a slur because I mean it. I mean it in a derisive way.
But it didn't even sound derisive. It sounded like really.
Could you call me that?
With my intelligence.
The fact is, I'm looking at this from an American perspective, and which is in America you can say whatever you want to a cop. Right. You can say whatever you want to. But here they're going to say, in America,
that cop will shoot your dog. And,
you know what?
From a British perspective, Paul.
Well, we seem to have created two types of police officer now, don't we? Ones that commit heinous crimes and ones that are offended by words.
Yeah.
There's no in-between anymore. I mean, just that's a bad photograph of that police officer, but she looks like every Karen in a Karen YouTube video. She looks like she's going to make the most of a young autistic girl making some comparison between her and her lesbian grandmother.
I'm surprised you didn't ask to speak to the girl's manager.
Well, exactly. But at the end of the day, why would you in any way handle a child and take them to one side, take them away from a safe space, just because they said words? No bad words, by the way. Nana and lesbian.
Yeah. And he was referring to a specific person, referring to her own grandmother who's a lesbian. You know, and the mother protests in the video as they're dragging the child away. She's not being homophobic. She's got, a nana.
But even if she is being homophobic, is there something wrong with being a lesbian? The answer in this day and age, no, there isn't. So if you call somebody a lesbian, that's not an insult. I don't think it is. And at the end of the day, is that she needed 3 other guys to pull that girl away. She didn't do it.
That is the caliber of British police. To take away a teenage girl, you need so many police officers. Moving on.
Or maybe it could be...
Moving on. We've got the Mail now, and Canada has some tips for the UK on how to cut NHS waiting lists, Paul.
Yes, Vancouver woman who was sent herself to hospital seeking help for suicidal thoughts has revealed how staff suggested euthanasia, believe it or not. The latest sign that Canada's assisted dying programme is out of control. And I can't agree more. I mean, talking of people who should be arrested, Trudeau here, for me, has created Canada is a fabulous country. I've got family there, I would say that. However, it is a fabulous country, and it seems that it's going further and further down the tubes politically the longer that Trudeau stays in government.
Well, it seems to be hyper woke, and they're pushing all these progressive policies around, child gender transitioning, but also around letting children die and letting people die. They've opened up medically assisted dying to mature minors, so people can request to die for pretty benign reasons. Like there's a 23-year-old kid. He had diabetes and he was depressed, but nothing that it was chronic conditions, but nothing that couldn't be treated and he couldn't enjoy a happy and fulfilled life with. And his mother only found out by accident that he'd applied for medically assisted dying. And, you know, normally, I mean, this woman, she suffers from chronic depression. You'd phone up the Samaritans. They're supposed to talk you out of killing yourself. Not, you know, she gets in touch with a medical representative who's supposed to help her. The medical representative is like, well, there's a long waiting list. You might want to die instead. What do you make of this, Lewis?
Well, I make of it, this is what happens when you have British-style medical care, and that's what this is. This is, they don't want, is that the doctors there, they don't want to spend the money to keep people alive. What makes America great is that doctors make money keeping people alive. In Canada and in this country, they're happier you die, and that's what the whole COVID thing was all about. Well,
I've got to, probably because of Ofcom, I've got to step in and say that's not what COVID was all about. COVID was about getting rich. If COVID was about killing people, they would have let it do its thing.
Well, because they wanted people to have.
But anyway, let's get back to this story. In fact, let's go on to the next story. We've got the Mail now, and Central Queensland University has said that Aboriginal people are unable to deal with arguments or sarcasm. Sounds pretty racist, Lewis.
It does sound racist, but this is the world we live in. I think they just want to be nice. Central Queensland University, which is in Australia, accused by the Institute of Public Affairs, which is a right-wing think tank, which the Daily Mail did not have the energy.
Tell us what they've been accused of.
They've been accused. They've been accused of being soft. They say, listen, Queensland University has told people don't get into arguments with Aborigines people. They just can't handle it.
Yeah, and also don't use sarcasm around Aboriginal people because it can be construed as you know, some sort of attack on them.
And that might actually be true. I've actually spent quite a lot of time in Australia, and the Australian white people there are very weird. And they love their sarcasm. And the Aborigines are a very different group of people, and they don't like sarcasm. And just because somebody, and maybe they're right to tell, they don't use...
I think that's a nonsense. I mean, I've gigged alongside Aboriginal people in Australia, and you know, they've got just as, you know, developed and intricate a sense of humour as anybody in the world.
They do, but not sarcasm. And it's just like me as an American have been criticised for being not understanding British irony or sarcasm, is that some countries sarcasm is not quite as like nice hair, Leo.
Yeah, but well, I mean,
it might not be as appreciated.
It's not as great as yours, Lewis. But I mean, Paul, this is clearly the bigotry of low expectations. They're saying that, you know, Aboriginals won't be able to cope with any dissent or any sarcasm.
I've actually had my head in my hands. Then this is actual racism on so many levels. They seem to be talking about Aboriginal people like they've just got off the boat in about 1700, and therefore they're encountering these people for the first time and saying, you can't talk to these people like that, they won't understand, they're not as clever as us. And at the other point, there is no equality in this.
Yeah.
Like you say, I've met Australian Aboriginal people, you have, and you know, they are no different to us. They've had 200 years of us, 300 years of us now. There is no equality in this whatsoever. You will not fix any problems by saying, look, you've got to treat them differently.
No, that is, I don't know, maybe Nick Dixon would call that, what do they call that, cultural cringe or a cultural, whatever. There's a word for what you're saying. Peoples are different.
But it's also, you know, compelled speech and censoring speech. They're saying, you can't argue. You can't say this.
There's lots. No, I agree with you. There's lots of wrong things. I'm totally agree with you. But at the end of the day, Aboriginal people tend to be different. They have a different background than the white Australians.
OK, well, moving on, we've got the Telegraph, and Kellogg seems to have completely forgotten its puritanical beginnings, Paul.
Yes, unbelievable, isn't it? Kellogg's has been accused of sexualising breakfast cereal boxes by celebrating Pride Month and running illegal, in inverted commas, diversity schemes. It argues that Kellogg's hiring, training and promotion practices are infused with woke ideology, let's ring a bell, and constitute illegal race-based discrimination.
And we've got pictures of the Cheez-It boxes, the Kellogg snacks, with, I think that's RuPaul, and I've no idea. Snooki? Is that Snooki she's called? I've no idea. I mean, it doesn't look that sexual. If you want to see a sexualised product, I've got to show you the caramel bunny. Yes. Remember the caramel
in the
bunny?
90s. I think she was one of my first loves.
Yeah, yeah. For me, it wasn't love. It was pure animal lust. Literally animal lust, because she was a rabbit. Lewis, what do you make of this?
I make of it, one is that those products are diabetes in a box, and if you ever eat them, you deserve to die. You will die. You will die. But at the end of the day, you ask, why is this happening? Because Kellogg's has a higher... Why is that funny?
It's just earlier
Look
on
at
you said, I'm comedian, I want to win people over. Followed by, if you eat sugar, you will die and you deserve to die.
Yeah, well, they will deserve to die. Now I can go back to trying to be funny. It's easier for me to be serious than funny. Anyway, I'm not that good at it.
I'm going to pull us up for sugar phobia.
And it's that too. It's the Randall cycle. Anyway, this is a perfect example. The fact that Kellogg's is trying to basically suck up for the ESG, for the to BlackRock, to Vanguard, to all these other big, huge money companies, and because they want to show that they actually are being. That they're no longer a religious mental.
So they're
group.
pushing these values. They're saying, look, we've got transgender drag queens or whatever on the front of our boxes. We're trying to sexualize children. We're doing all the things that you
want us to do. Loan us more money.
Yeah. Anyway, that's it for part 3. Coming up in the final section, we've got Virgin Galactic's first trip, a recipe for mustard gas, and time's up for the Paralympics. Scientists could be regrowing our limbs. See you in a couple of minutes.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train. Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the final part of Headliners, kicking things off with a star, and we all know that things can go wrong on space flights, So it's very sad to see Virgin Galactic using black people as guinea pigs on their first phone call.
Lovely little line to throw me, Leo, thank you. Fuming conspiracy theorists believe the recent live footage of 3 civilian astronauts, where's the cost of living crisis, heading into space proves that they are correct about their claims of flat Earth. Now, it's really interesting. I mean, let's ignore the fact that we just sent 3 people on holiday to space for 5 minutes. Goodness only knows what they paid for it.
I mean, call it space. It wasn't actually that far.
They went to the edge of space, but the edge of space
went halfway up the shaft.
Just above the studio roof, isn't it? You know, how far up did they go? And this actually lends itself to the story, because the story in the Star, because it's the Daily Star, it is basically just taking the mickey out of tin hat wearing flat earthers and poking fun at the comments they left under there because the curvature of the Earth couldn't be seen from the videography that was shown. It looked kind of curvy to me.
It looked flat to me.
Yeah,
and also Antarctica looked like a wall.
Yeah, could be. You know something? And I've said this before. I'm going to say it again. I'd rather listen to a flat earther than the head of any department at Oxford or Cambridge or Harvard, because you know you're going to. They might be wrong about the flat Earth. I don't think there's the flat Earth, but they're probably right about COVID. They're probably right about the climate scam. They're going to be right about something. But the person at Oxford and at Cambridge is wrong about everything. Those people are horrible.
Also,
people.
flat earthers. You know they're saying what they really believe.
And yes,
they're
exactly.
not just saying it to go along with what they've been told in the media or whatever.
That's totally true. They're great at parties, these people.
I've started combining my conspiracy theories. I think the Earth is flat and hollow.
And hollow.
How they do it?
You know what?
They've somehow done it.
It could be hollow, and I'm going to tell you something. Those 3 rich people, were they rich people or the 2?
They didn't win it.
Was the one person was rich and the other
person bought the first ever ticket.
And the other 2, what were the other 2 people?
They
the
missed
pretty
out
girls.
The Titanic sub. So
They missed out. Exactly. Let me just say this. When I saw them guy, and I know he's alive now, but I hoped he died. I just wanted the thing to crash.
Oh, I knew I should have come out of that story quicker. Anyway, we've got The Guardian next, and a meal planner app has created a recipe for an actual chemical weapon, Lewis.
Yes, that is totally true. And it's a supermarket AI meal planner app. Suggests recipe that would, hold on a second, that would create chlorine gas.
Yeah.
So this is Pack and Save, Savvy Meal Bot. You know what? It's a New Zealand thing. Are they allowed to say that? I don't know if they're allowed to say that. And it's an AI thing, and it created something, chlorine gas.
You put in your leftovers, put your leftovers in the app and it tells you what you can make. But then people started putting in like chemical cleaning products and other things from the supermarket. And it still made a recipe.
I hope to God this is the last AI story we do.
No joke.
I paid £38 just yesterday for one of those called Nova Chat GPT. And I don't know, maybe I got ripped off or anything. I asked the AI, has comedian Louis Schaefer ever been on BBC television? And this is what it said. It said, yes, comedian Louis Schaefer has made appearances on BBC. He has been featured on shows such as Have I Got News for You? Good Morning Britain, and Comedy Central's The World Stands Up. This is AI. So if you believe anything that AI has...
Well, maybe this is a clairvoyant service.
And then here's another question. Is comedian Louis Schaefer British? Yes, comedian Louis Schaefer.
You've been here long enough. You're naturalised.
Ask those. I'm not naturalised. Ask any person out there. Do you think Louis Schaefer is Britain?
Shut up about Louis Schaefer. But I mean, some of the things it was recommending to make. I mean, a fresh breath mocktail made out of bleach, and poison and glue sandwiches. I mean, Scottish cuisine is pretty bad, but this is the next level.
Bleach infused rice. Now, both of us, Leo, if we woke up tomorrow morning and saw on Twitter that Lewis had eaten any of these things for breakfast, we would not be surprised. No. We'd give it a like. We'd see what his followers...
You know what I did? Can I tell you what I did? There's one of those steam irons in the dressing room, and my shirt needed ironing. Right. And so I thought, well, I'll just iron it on the thing. And I got a 3rd-degree burn.
Lewis,
that I'm just...
You're in your 60s. Why are you doing things like this?
I don't know, because it was like Schafarian.
Oh, God. Anyway, let's fit another story.
Maybe 2nd degree,
We've got the mirror. Please don't take your shirt off. We've got the mirror now. And do you reckon that you could get 2 of these in your mouth, Paul? Let Lewis put his shirt back on.
I'd give it a good go, Leo. I'd give it a good go, mate. A posh restaurant horrifies diners with lamb testicles who say it's a Bush Tucker trial. So this, to me, I mean, this is a posh eatery in Manchester. Now, I don't know if that's an oxymoron, don't know if that's actually possible, but this just prove once again, it's not posh people, by the way. These are for aspiring posh people. They'll eat and do anything to make themselves look good on Instagram. But at the end of the day, it was only £9 for these sheep testicles. I mean, that is climate busting. That's cost of living busting prices there. So,
well, not for the sheep, it's not. Anyway, let's see if we can squeeze this one in really quickly. We've got the Telegraph now, and scientists have regrown lizard cells. This has got to be good news for members of our shape-shifting Illuminati elites, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, there is some good news in there, hopefully. Researchers successfully induce magical cartilage regeneration that could unlock ways to treat damage of osteoarthritis, which, let's face it, has got to be good news. I haven't got it. I wonder if Lewis has.
I had a form of arthritis, many different forms. I had trigger finger, I had frozen shoulder, I had gout, and I had plantar fasciitis, and it's all caused by high carbs and toxic seed oils and greens and greens.
By the anti-Kellogg's people. Anyway, the show is...
They're evil. Kellogg's is evil.
Look at Friday's front pages. The Daily Mail leads with striking doctors are just harming patients. The Guardian has Prime Minister will go down in history for failing on climate. That's Greenpeace. The Financial Times has New York's Tapestry tackles Europe's luxury giant with $8.5 billion Capri deal. The Eye has mortgage rates war begins as 13 lenders cut prices. The Express has fears of surge in small boats. And the Mirror has guess who had Shell shares. And those were your front pages. And that's all we have time for tonight. Thank you to my guests, Paul Cox and Lewis Schaefer. Andrew Doyle will be here tomorrow at 11 p.m. with Lewis and Nick Dixon. And if you're watching at 5 p.m, stay tuned for breakfast. Abby Leo Kearse. Bye.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest broadcast for GB News. I'm Greg Dewhurst. We're going to see increasing risk of showers as we move towards the weekend, but there will be some sunny spells, just turning a little cooler too. If we look at the bigger picture, this area of low pressure moves in another area of low pressure for the weekend, bringing the risk of showers, though not as windy as recent weekends. For this evening, it's been fine end of the day for many, but we do have this area of rain pushing north and eastwards. It could be heavier for a time across Northern Ireland as it crosses into Scotland too. Elsewhere, generally quite a cloudy, warm, muggy night to come. A lot of cloud around, some drizzle over the hills. Temperatures remaining in double figures, 17, 18 degrees as a low for some of us. Bit of a cloudy start to Friday, still some rain across Scotland, heavy at times, pushing away northeastwards, and then slowly through the morning it starts to brighten up. We could see this area of cloud push into southeast England though to give some showery rain for the afternoon. Elsewhere, bright afternoon, sunny spells and scattered showers, turning breezy around western coast, making it feel a little cooler here. Still highs reaching 27 degrees towards East Anglia. And then Saturday, this low approaches us, gives spells of rain across the north and the west of the UK as the winds pick up. Best of the drier, brighter weather holding on towards the southeast. But even here, we'll see some showers moving in later on in the day and quite blustery. Temperatures a little cooler too, and that continues into Sunday and Monday with further showers and temperatures a little below average.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Monday to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your